I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street.
Hey guys, Steve Owens here. I'm here to tell you about the coolest subscription-based monthly curator of men's fashion, the Menlo Club. Here's how it works. When you sign up at menlohouse.com, you choose your color and style categories. Then, each month, they send several pieces of clothing specially selected for you, all for $60 per month, tax and shipping included. Items like button-ups, both long and short-sleeved, t-shirts, shorts, jeans, pants, sweaters, athleisure wear, even sunglasses and shoes. And as a special deal for my listeners, during the month of August, if you sign up and use promo code FSP, you'll receive 50% off your first month's package, plus a pair of 5-4 brand sneakers and socks. So sign up today at menlohouse.com and use promo code FSP, as in Fascination Street Podcast, at checkout. Hi everybody, this is Steve Owens from Fascination Street Podcast. I really appreciate your listening to the show. I'm having a lot of fun getting to talk to some really fascinating people, and I want to continue doing this, but I need your help. I need you to subscribe and tell people about the show. But the biggest thing you can do to help me is to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen through. As a special thank you, anyone who rates and or reviews the show, send me a screenshot as proof and I will mail you a set of 3 pair of silk cufflinks courtesy of my friends at Menlo House. You can send it via Twitter to @FascinationSTPD, via Instagram to FascinationStreetPod, or email me at FascinationStreetPod@gmail.com. I really appreciate all of you for listening and for helping. Thank you so much. Now let's get to this week's guest. Welcome back, guys. This episode is with Marty Yu. Marty Yu was on the U.S. national fencing team a really, really long time ago. A graduate of both the UCB and Groundlings, and the host of the Nooner podcast on the Smodcast Internet Radio Network every Tuesday. In this episode, Marty and I talk about his fencing career, his being a founding member of the Sacred Fools Theater Company, and of course, how the Nooner podcast got started. And also, Marty shares a story about sharing clams with the great Jimmy Kimmel. Enjoy, guys. From the Nooner podcast, Marty Yu.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Marty Yu, how are you doing, sir?
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
It's never been done before. Very clever.
Sure.
I have no idea how I'm doing. I don't know why I'm here.
Well, I will explain to you why you're here.
Okay.
You live here.
Understood. We are recording in my dining room.
Home of the Nooner.
Oh, yes.
Home
This
of
is
the
where the
Nooner
magic
podcast.
happens. But again, I don't know why you have taken time out of your day to come here.
Well, you know from my business card that my podcast is Fascination Street.
Fascination implies like a focus of attention.
See, but that's where you might be misled, because it doesn't matter whether or not you think you're fascinating.
Because you bring the fascination.
No!
You're a fascinating person.
No, not at all. It's my podcast. It's who I think is fascinating.
I see.
And I think you're fascinating.
Bruno disagrees with you.
I don't remember if I told you this when I was here and you were gracious enough to have me on your show.
It was great having you.
But I've never missed an episode of your show. I absolutely love it, with the exception of this week. It's the very first thing I listen to of all the podcasts I listen to, which is, it's less now that I listen to other different podcasts, because whenever I know that I'm having a guest come up, I try and do quote unquote research. And so the way I do that is I find podcasts that they were on, because podcasts tend to wander and sort of delve into stories that they might not tell everywhere.
Right.
So it kind of gives me a little bit more of a feel. I mean, I'm not going to, read questions or anything, but it gives me an idea.
Our podcast was the first podcast to have Kristen Bell talk about her fascination with lemurs. And when her husband, then fiance, surprised her with a lemur at her house, and then literally like 2 months later,
Broke the internet?
she's on Ellen talking about it. I was like, that old story?
Here's where might make you mad.
You can make me mad.
That was a sloth.
You are correct. As I was telling the story, I was like, what was it again? It was literally slow, and it was a sloth. It was a...
And I only know that because I had never heard of a sloth until that happened.
Yeah, very cute.
But yeah, you guys have had a lot of people on your show. Max Greenberg, right?
Yes.
That's his name, right?
Schmitty,
Greenfield. I think that's it. Yeah, you're right.
Super nice guy. And
Really?
Yeah, like we've only had really nice people on our show.
I think
except
that's
for
true.
Steven Kruger.
That guy's precious.
Okay, so you were saying that the last show you listened to, you were not a fan of.
No, that's not what I said.
Ah.
I haven't listened to that one yet.
Oh, it hasn't been released yet, I don't think.
Well, your show kind of comes out willy-nilly whenever.
I don't have control over that.
I understand. But the one that came, I think one dropped today.
Okay.
And I haven't listened to that one yet. So
Well, this interview is over.
Right. But that's because I was really, really busy today and I just didn't. But typically, The Nooner is the very first episode I listen to of the week's new episodes.
Oh, well, that's lovely to hear you say that. It's something that all of us love to do. We don't make any money off of it. It is what it is. It's a very specific thing, and when we're all in a room, it's just a fun chemistry that we have, and when it hits on all cylinders, it's really, really exciting. You know, when Cassandra's doing her characters and when Kruger's just being a dick and then I'm exasperated and then we have some guests here and there, but it's the best.
It really is a lot of fun, and having listened to it for so long, it feels like I know all of you, like y'all are all my friends.
And you have become our friends in real life, IRL.
Thank you. And so it's really just been, like, all these years has been a joy. So first of all, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, and thank you for being a faithful listener. I don't know if your listeners know what a generous spirit you are. Like you,
I don't think so. It doesn't really come up.
Not only do you contribute with your wit and questions, and this is not just going to be a tug fest, as it were, but you have graced us with several presents and books and booze and candy, and you're a very thoughtful person.
Thank you. Well, that's how I treat my friends. So,
well, I guess,
like I said, I
I'm
consider
a
you guys friends.
shitty friend.
No, knock it off. No, I mean, you selflessly, you have entertained me for hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Oh.
And like you said, you don't make any money, and you have to schedule, you don't have to, but you are kind enough to schedule most of your life around it, kind of. I mean, sometimes, you have work to do and, other things that you fit this in because you enjoy it. And,
I do.
So thanks.
When I took my current job, I don't know if you care to know about my background, but my current job, I said on Tuesday mornings, I am not free until 11. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
See, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You don't have to do that. But you enjoy it so much, right?
Well, I think we get so busy with the work that we do, and sometimes it fulfills us spiritually if we're lucky enough to be Clint Howard or George Clooney or Neil deGrasse Tyson. But the rest of us have to find these soul-filling activities and then pursue them.
Is this that for you?
It's one of many, and I think that I am somebody who's easily distractible, and having routines is very good. So like having this as a...
It's funny that you say you're easily distractible because almost every single time you start down the path, you get thrown off because everybody interjects, and especially Kruger. It's like he does it. I mean, I know he does it on purpose.
He does it on purpose, yes.
You do seem to generally bring it back to where you were, so, good on you.
Oh, thank you. Well, but I'm speaking more broadly of my life. I've done several things in life, and I think the longest job I've ever had is podcast host, which has made me the least amount of money, so...
Cool. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up here in California?
I grew up here in Northern California. Well, we're in Los Angeles now, but I grew up in Northern California.
Okay, so is that like San Francisco area?
Once you hit San Francisco, that's considered Northern California, because further north, even though there's half of a state left, if you go north of San Francisco, It doesn't count to those in San Francisco. And the people in San Francisco, of which I am a part of, growing up, we felt very proud of our Northern California roots, and then very antagonistic towards Southern California.
So you are
LA.
from the San Francisco area?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I think the last time I was here, I said that this was my first time in California. It wasn't until I was telling my wife, I was relaying this story to my wife, and she was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And she goes, "Because, dumbass, we went to Napa. That's in California." I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess it is in California." So I guess I lied. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but I think that there's a deep schism, between Northern California and Southern California. Well, Northern Californians feel that way. Southern Californians don't care. So I love it here in LA, and it's very hard to go back there and visit because it's a very different place. I grew up around apricot orchards, raising chickens.
So you grew up like not in the bustle and the hustle and bustle of
No,
the city.
it was very suburban or whatever,
Rural.
like rural. Our house cost like $60,000. Now it's just full of.
I saw a tent under an overpass today that probably cost $60,000.
Yeah, well, actually, we live right next to an overpass, or my parents do. But
Do
now
they still live there?
they still
Is
live
that
there.
where you got married?
That's where I got married.
Awesome.
And it's now just full of these internet millionaire douchebags.
Really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, there was a
For
house.
them, I mean.
There's a house a mile away that sold for $100 million to a Russian oligarch. I don't even know what that means, but it's a problem everywhere. Real estate is crazy. But anyhow,
Real estate's not crazy where I'm from.
Oh really?
Oh my gosh.
I will retire in San Antonio.
I have no idea what this house costs, and I don't think I've been in every room, but I kind of have a feel for the house-ish.
Mm-hmm.
This house would cost, in a good neighborhood, about $165,000 in San Antonio.
That's incredible.
It is wildly incredible.
But to answer your question, I grew up in Northern California. I went to college. And then,
Where'd you go to college?
you know exactly where I went to
What's
college.
that?
I went to college in Connecticut. No, I went to Yale.
Yale. Were you a whiffin' poof?
I was not a whipping poof, despite my sonorous tones, my dulcet speaking voice. I was not in a singing group.
Careful, your ascot is falling off.
Oh.
Oh. What made you apply to go to
Well, my
Yale?
sister went there. My sister she's the one who is the very successful.
What's her name?
Her name is Jessica. She's a filmmaker. She's right now filming Billions with Paul Giamatti in New York City. Both of them went to Yale.
Paul Giamatti, wasn't he? His father was like the commissioner of baseball or something.
And the president of Yale.
And the president of Yale.
Yeah, and when I was there, Paul worked in the food hall, and he was just slinging hash and was very nice.
Really?
I didn't know him personally, but I only know him through the slinging hash
He
thing.
was a lunch lady.
He was a lunch lady, and he was an excellent actor, and I saw him in a few things. And stunning.
I'm super curious why the son of the president of the school would need to...
He didn't need to, I don't think. I think that, I think that's a philosophical thing of like, my parents said, don't worry about getting a job, just go to school. And I still got a job at school, and Bart Giamatti had much more money than my family did. I think it's character building, and it teaches you work ethic, it teaches you to be financially responsible. I think it's a really important thing, and also teaches you time management.
Yeah.
Is this a comedy podcast?
Not in this house.
I'm sorry.
Not generally at this table.
The Nooner podcast is rubbing off on the Fascination Street podcast.
Yes. So you really only went to Yale because your sister did? And because your parents kind of...
Because I got in too.
Really?
I was an athlete in
What sport?
jousting.
Jousting.
No, I was on the.
God damn, you are from Connecticut.
No, I was on the, actually not far. I was on the fencing team.
That's right, I should have remembered that.
Yeah, I was a competitive fencer, and I was on the U.S. national team, and so there was a big deal, and so I was kind of it's like absurd to even think about it, but I was a jock.
Is fencing a jock sport?
How dare you? If I had any physical strength, I would threaten you. Where are my foils?
I say.
Yeah. But yes, it was a great way to see the world and go to college, and it was super fun.
What was your goal? What did you want to be when you grew up?
That's a funny thing. Well, because as an easily distractible person, it turns out, like I found out in my 30s, that I have severe ADHD.
You found out in your 30s?
Yeah, pretty much. Because did pretty well in school and went to Yale, and like what could possibly be wrong with me, right? And then when like jumping around from 17 different jobs and like having like no
After school.
after school, and then having like no strong relationships and having all sorts of distractibility issues, like then realizing, oh, it's because you have a whatever brain chemistry issue. So anyhow, that I could say, I don't know if it's a chicken or egg thing, but regardless, I didn't have a firm plan. I was just like, I'll be fine. I'm incredibly envious of those people who have
Who know what they want to do.
who know what they want to do.
Early, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just people who, not the Mozarts of the world who at 4 doing,
that's ridiculous.
symphonies and whatever, but the people who just have a game plan in their head and they execute that game plan. And, it doesn't matter if they're wildly successful, but they just have purpose. I think having purpose is something that we all strive for. And whether it's purpose in raising a family, and being like, I'm going to do my damnedest to be a great father, or do my damnedest to be a great actor or writer or podcaster. And then obviously you have to balance all the life stuff too, but having that purpose is and focus is amazing. So there was that marshmallow test. I don't know if you're familiar with that, in Stanford. And I'm sure, I grew up right next to Stanford, and that was happening right around the same time. So I'm sure that people I went to school with participated in that.
So I am familiar with it, but I'm 100% sure that a lot of listeners aren't.
Yeah, so this is what they did, is they told kids, they put a marshmallow in front of them, and they said, okay, here's a marshmallow, don't eat it, and then in 10 minutes we'll bring you a second one. But if you eat it, we won't bring you one. And some of the kids would just sit there, and they left the kids alone, and the kids would just stare at this marshmallow, and they would be like, ugh, or some of the kids would, and be like, and then they would like eat the marshmallow, and then they would tell them like, a monster came and ate the marshmallow. Or then there were the other kids who were just sat there like stoically and were like, where's my second marshmallow? I would have eaten the marshmallow and the bag before they finished the instructions. That is who I am. I have no impulse control when it comes to that.
And I believe that they followed some of these kids.
Yes, they followed them through for decades, and they found that those who had impulse control had more success, they had stronger relationships, they had more money, and that was not me. And yet I'm incredibly happy, and I've had my own successes.
So when did you decide that you wanted to go towards acting? How did that happen?
Again, when I graduated from college, I had no game plan.
Were you on an improv team or anything
No,
like
no,
that?
I was an athlete.
This whiff and poof thing is out of whole cloth. He just made it up. Like, you weren't in anything.
No.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression that you were in some sort of a comedy troupe or something.
No, I did not perform at all.
Oh, okay.
I had a friend who was coming to film school, Dan Etheridge, who co-founded this podcast and is now gone on to great things as a TV director and producer.
Well, even before the podcast, he was
already a very successful producer.
Right. And now is he still doing Isambi?
Isambi, he's doing Isambi. iZombie on the CW.
And before that, he was doing Carrie Diaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then a whole bunch of stuff before that.
Yeah, and he directed the season finale of this season's Isambi.
Oh, good.
And has the distinction of he produced the most Pauly Shore movies at the time.
How is he still working then?
Well, because he only produced 2 of them. Because
okay.
Yes.
Because everybody else did one. And was
one
like,
and done.
Never again.
One and done.
And then Dan was like, "Of course, I'll do it one more time."
Well, I think he got into those 2 different producing jobs through different methods,
Gotcha.
different avenues.
So how did you know Dan? Was it from school?
Yeah. So Dan was actually an actor in college.
So you and Dan are the same age?
Yes.
This is hilarious, and it's cool because Dan's never going to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen what he looks like. I've only ever heard you guys. And I would have bet all of the money that I have ever made in my life that he was 20 years older than you.
If you saw him, you would say 15. No, he's a handsome fellow. A handsome fellow. So he was actually in Henry IV in college, where Paul Giamatti played Falstaff, and I think Dan played, I can't remember who played, but Edward Norton played like soldier number 4.
Oh, Eddie. He was just carrying a spear.
Yeah. And everyone was like, oh, that guy's a nice guy, but oof, can't act. And sure enough, they were wrong.
Well,
I think he's a fine actor.
he is now. He probably wasn't then.
Oh, yeah, he honed his craft. So
like we were going back to, he clearly had a vision for what he wanted to be, and he got there.
He got there.
You know?
Yeah. I did not. I worked in, my sister was here working in film, in documentaries.
So as soon as she got out of school, she just came here and started working in film?
She actually went to San Francisco first, but was working in documentaries.
Oh, okay.
And then I came here and just worked in production jobs. I worked as a PA on several movies and commercials, and then worked as a production coordinator, then got into sort of reading scripts, doing coverage on, and working in film development.
Reading scripts, like, to decide whether or not they were going to be made?
Yeah, so I worked for propaganda films, which made like Being John Malkovich, and then worked for Miramax, which created that monster Weinstein, whatever his name is. So I read scripts for them for several years, but again,
When?
in the mid-90s.
You read? Oh, no, I guess that was bought after it was made. I was going to say, so you read Clerks? But no.
No, that was after. It was after Clerks, but I did do notes on Being John Malkovich, and
Really? That was a very interesting movie.
I don't know if anybody read them, but I did them. And then at that point, I started acting because a friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm starting a theater company," and I said, "That's great." And he said, "No, come on over." And I was like, "I'm not an actor," and he said, "Doesn't matter." Next thing I knew, I was on stage prancing around like an idiot.
Does this friend have a name?
John Sylvain. I was at the very first meeting, so I'm a founding member of the Sacred Fools Theater Company, which has an incredible legacy. I mean, it's been around for coming on.
I just came from a different theater company.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, it's been around for 20 years now, and it has flourished, and long beyond when I was there doing my crappy shit. And then I studied improv at the Groundlings and at UCB.
Both of them?
Both of them. I went through all the program at both of them. So,
Did you get to Harold?
I auditioned for several Harold teams. I had my own long-form team that we performed around town. We were called Hey Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, and that was great.
Would we know anybody who was in your classes?
Yeah, sure. What's that guy's? Mikey Day.
Oh, Mikey Day. He's currently on Saturday Night Live.
Yes, he was in my level 2 and 3 class, and he was an undergrad at that point at UCLA, and I was like, that guy's a spaz. And
perfect place for him to end up.
Yes,
I'm sure he's not done.
And that was at Groundlings. I mean, I said he was a spaz. He was also very funny. Annie Mumolo, who co-wrote Bridesmaids.
And yeah, right.
Yeah. Stephanie Courtney.
Is Flo?
Flo, yes. And I mean, there's just so many incredible people. And then I remember telling this to Cassandra on my podcast. And
Cassandra
she said,
Cardenas.
Yes, and she said, "Well, what happened to you?"
Oh, that's sweet.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so
out of the mouths of babes.
Yes. So Groundlings is a very regimented program. They cut people off at every level. It's very high pressure. Right before the Sunday Company is where I ended up.
You and Adam Carolla, that's where he...
Well, no, I didn't make the Sunday Company. He was in the Sunday Company.
I don't
Oh,
think
no,
he
he did
was.
not make the Sunday
He didn't.
Company. That's right, he did not. He's years before me, but...
Do you feel like those classes helped you in
Absolutely.
the rest of your life?
Oh my God, they were invaluable. they break it down and it's very precise, regimented, not always funny, but like it's disciplined. And I learned so much. And then I went to UCB years later.
Upright Citizens Brigade.
Yes, they were started in New York and they came out here. And I had a friend who was teaching there, and when he first came out, he's like, I don't know if you like it. And then a few years later, I joined, and totally different environment.
Than the Groundlings?
Totally different, yes. Like nurturing and
Didn't they kind of have an anti-Groundlings kind of mindset when they started it?
Actually, I don't know. I don't know the genesis of it.
Felt like I've heard Amy Poehler say that, because she's one of the founding members, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've heard her say that, she came here and went to some Groundlings classes just to kind of check it out, and she said that it kind of turned her off in a way that she wasn't expecting, and so that informed her when they were founding the UCB.
I remember there was an actress in my level 3 class and at Groundlings, and she needed a ride home, and and we had just a regular class, and like on the way driving her home, she just like started bursting. She burst out into tears, and it was just like, I'm not going to make it. I really want to make SNL, and it's just not going to happen, and I'm losing it. Or she didn't say I'm losing it, but she was losing it. I was like, it's just one class. Like, if you don't move up, like, whatever. Like, this is not even paid theater at Groundlings. The people who are in Groundlings don't make any money. So, like, you just do what you do. You take from it, and then you go off and do what you do. And she just was like, so just beside herself. She went on to, apparently there's a huge improv scene in Amsterdam.
Boom Chicago.
I guess so. I've never been.
Boom Chicago, that's where...
yes, she was at Boom Chicago.
That's where Seth and his brother...
Your first name?
Myers.
Basis with Seth?
Yeah,
Myers?
me and Seth Myers, we go way back.
What's his brother's name? Walt?
Fuckface. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's Dickhead or something. I don't know. He's a nice guy, but...
Not so handsome, not so funny.
But those two went to Boom Chicago.
Yeah.
And also, I'm sure you watched Breaking Bad.
No.
You didn't really?
Mm-mm.
Badger. The guy who plays Badger, his name is Matt Jones. The reason that his voice is so hoarse, because he sounds kind of... Oh, he's on Mom.
Mm-hmm.
You ever watch that?
No.
Mom. Anyway, his voice kind of sounds like this, and they're like, who else is in there now?
Yeah. He hates Matt Jones. Bruno is an anti-Matt Jones.
Clearly. But the reason that his voice is like that is because in Boom Chicago, he was doing, 8 shows a week or 9 shows a week or whatever it was, and it got raspy and it never changed.
Yeah, and like the crazy thing is like, this person who was like so freaked out about Groundlings like went there, and her face was on buses in Amsterdam, because it was such a huge thing. There were theaters that held 800 people.
She was the David Hasselhoff of Amsterdam.
But so many great people came out of that Amsterdam scene, like
right.
Seth Meyers of the world, and she came back, and she's now an improv star.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. It wasn't the same sort of nurturing environment that UCB is. Much more they sort of encourage you to engage with each other. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, like,
it's just different styles of
different
teaching.
styles. One is more rigid and disciplined, which is you must have discipline. And then the other is like fun, but also equally intense.
So one is Kreese and one is Miyagi-Do.
Exactly. And
one's Cobra Kai, one's Miyagi-Do.
I am wax on and then whatever, Cobra Kai.
You're all, I am wax on, ascend to floor.
Yeah, exactly. So that, anyhow, I went through that whole thing and then decided, like, what, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be an actor. And, like, my parents were mortified. And then
because they're like, okay, so Jessica's already doing documentaries, which doesn't make any money. And now you're going to go be an actor?
Right.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Why do we spend all that money on Harvard?
How dare you?
Just kidding. I meant Yale.
I know you exactly.
And also, they didn't spend any money because you went for free.
No, that's not true. No, the Ivy League, they do not have athletic scholarships.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So,
Because that's not where the focus is. For those schools.
They took a second mortgage out on the house. I'm so grateful I had the best parents in the world. Like, they supported me through so much. Yeah, I mean, I could not be more grateful to my parents. And
I hope you tell them that.
Oh, yeah. So I'm incredibly lucky in that way. And I totally recognize it. I grew up in a neighborhood that embraced sort of intellectual thought and, wasn't focused on anything other than just being smart. Like, being smart was like cool.
Highly valued.
Highly valued. And not even being successful, but just being smart. And
just educated. Kind of like the way everybody else in the world does it.
Right.
Like Dolph Lundgren has like 5 degrees or something.
Yeah, he has
he speaks like 4 languages.
He went to MIT. He was a Fulbright scholar. And I mean, I think all that cocaine messed him up, but he's super smart. So I became an actor, and then at the same time, I needed a job, and then I was like living in this shabby little guest house, and then the guy living in the main house was like, "Hey, why don't you live in the main house?" It's like, "Whoa, easy there, creepo."
Oh, really? It wasn't like, I'm going to be out of town for 6 months. Why don't you take over the house? It was like, hey.
No. He was wanted a friendship. No, he's a great guy. But he started a company, and then I worked at it working in technology. I had no idea what I was doing, and then he just gave me a book on HTML. And then here's a great story. Like, it was funded by our next door neighbor.
I'm sorry. So this guy's
So
company.
I was living in the Hollywood Hills.
Okay.
In this guest house.
Right.
And then the guy who moved into the main house was also renting it out. He's like, "Well, why don't you just move into the main house
and hang out with me, so I'm not so fucking lonely."
Right. And then he's like...
And then the neighbor was funding this guy's business.
Right.
That you were working at.
Right.
Okay.
And it was, the concept was that we were doing like traffic, that we would send traffic to your cell phones, like in the late 90s.
You mean like actual traffic, like cars and...
We would... No,
you don't mean like...
Traffic reports. So...
But like for actual traffic.
Not
actual like
traffic reports.
Not like, we need more traffic to the website. Not like
No.
But you mean like
road
actual
traffic. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and San Antonio was one of our cities. And we had like these reporters who were just like listening to scanners all day and being like, "There's an accident here, there's an accident there." Not a great business, because it required... Anyway,
it sounds like it required a massive amount of manpower.
Yes, but I was there to create the website. I had no idea how to make a website. He literally gave me an HTML book.
HTML for dummies.
Yes, and it was funded by our next door neighbor, who had this like sort of fetish porn company. And so I was in an office, but they didn't have an office, so I was in a closet, and this closet was surrounded, just stacked with VHS copies of shoe fetish porn.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm sure that much like my "How are you doing?" This has never been asked before. When did you come out of the closet?
Well, here's my thing. So I'm there with my book, just doing like whatever, open tags and close tags, just doing a shit job of this website. And still they managed to get millions of dollars of funding. And I'm surrounded by this stuff in Hollywood, and I'm just thinking, if there's an earthquake, I'm gonna die under stacks of fetish porn.
What are they gonna tell your parents?
Once we got the shoe porn off of his body, we could identify him from dental records.
Your parents' neighbors, and be like, "Oh, what happened to Marty?" Well, he didn't die in an avalanche of porn, that's for sure.
We know how he died. But then we eventually moved to bigger digs, and then at that time, I wasn't very good at the job, easily distracted, it turns out. I had this whole department that I was running, had no idea what I was doing. And then at that time, I was getting called to auditions. So I would be like, "Okay, I got to take a long lunch," and I would just run off to an audition. And I would go to the auditions, and I had been auditioning several times before and booked, 1 or 2 commercials or something like that. And then I would go to these auditions and be like, gotta get back, got meetings, tell these people to do.
So when you're at your job, you're thinking about your audition, and when you're at your audition,
I'm thinking I need to go back and pretend that I know what I'm doing. And then, while I'm pretending to know what I'm doing, I'm like, shit, I gotta go back and, But in the actual auditions, I don't care about the auditions. And this is, I think, key to being a good actor is not caring.
I've heard that a lot.
And sure enough, that's when I started
Because
to...
if you do care, then for some reason you seem to come off desperate.
Desperate,
And they go,
yes.
well, fuck this desperate asshole. I need somebody who is going to focus less on getting this goddamn job, even though that's the only reason anybody's there.
Right. And that's when I started to book tons of work, right as the company was folding.
Well, that's fortuitous.
Yeah, it is. But commercial acting is very different from theatrical acting because a lot of it's just about look and about but some of the jobs were really fun and great, and then I started to book some theatrical stuff, just little bits here and there. So it's as an actor, it wasn't the most creatively satisfying, but it felt like a payoff for all the work that I put in. And then I sort of reached middle age and packed on a little weight and lost my youthful exuberance. And then I was also around the time of the financial crash.
In 08?
In 08.
That one?
Yeah. And
I got laid off from 3 different banks in 08.
there you go.
That's when I decided to, because I was in the mortgage business and I was doing windows on the side with my friend. And then once I got let go from 3 different banks in 1 year, I was like, well, all of y'all banks can just kiss my grits. I'm just going to go wash windows full time.
Right? Feel like you have control.
I 100% feel like that.
Yeah. But I was acting in commercials and I was writing for commercials. So I would work for these production companies, like writing treatments, what they call it. And so sort of like writing jokes and writing sort of like the director's vision of a particular project. But at that time, advertising budgets just shriveled up. And so, I would be doing 2 to 3 writing jobs, auditioning, just getting these stacks of residual checks from stuff I didn't remember what I was doing. I did like.
And to be clear, everybody, these residual checks are like $4, 33 cents.
No, well, some of them were, but some of them were several thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Good.
So right now, I was in Grey's Anatomy, or no, what's a better one? I was in Veronica Mars. I did several episodes of Veronica, or not several, but 3 or 4. And so now I'll get a check for $1.31 from Estonia,
Because they're rerunning it in Estonia.
Right, and they're paying Warner Brothers money for it, and then Warner Brothers has to pay all the actors.
Okay, so you were on, I don't remember the name of the show, but it was with Ellen Barkin, whatever that show was called.
Yes, that was called Animal Kingdom. That was last January, but
that show is still on, but I think.
I was cut out of it.
So you were completely cut out.
Yes.
You didn't air.
I did not air.
In a case like that, yes, you got paid for your time that day, but you'll never see another penny from
I will
that?
never not see another penny. But actually, I don't. Here's the thing. I'm not interested in reading rules about this shit.
Right.
So
Nobody seems to know.
Because I was in a movie called Guinevere with Sarah Polley, and I got to sit in bed, lie in bed with her all day, and it was the first scene in the movie. Then the director decided that she wanted to go right to the flashback. So I was not in the movie, but I still get checks literally for 6 cents for that.
Interesting.
And that's not the 6th sense.
Aha.
6 pennies.
So maybe, and I'm just guessing, maybe once it's wrapped, well, no, not even, I don't know. Maybe if you're associated with the production at all.
I don't know. Well, it hasn't been very long, so maybe I will get checks from 7 cents of checks from Animal Kingdom. I don't know. But
I'd be interested to know. I mean,
I will let you know. You'll
sure
be the
you
first
won't,
person I will let know. So I happened to be working in the commercial industry when it was booming. Nowadays, it's the internet. Nobody watches network TV anymore.
when they do, it's on DVR and they're just fucking hauling ass through those commercials.
They're hiring tons and tons of non-union actors.
Because they don't have to pay them as much.
They don't have to. They can pay them. They don't have to pay residuals on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So residuals is only for union actors? Unless they negotiate.
Yeah, that one individual guy who holds up that Coke can and says it so convincingly, and then goes on and negotiates a full contract for every exhibition of that commercial in all the territories.
So part of the union thing is that's already been negotiated for our members.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that's why SAG was a very powerful union. And it's weird, people think oh, you made $40,000 of that commercial for working one day, that's bullshit. Well, what that doesn't take into consideration is the hundreds of auditions that I go where I didn't book anything.
Right, and also the 9 auditions you went to for that project.
It would be like 3 or 2 or 3,
sure.
yeah. And so,
And let me tell you, driving around in this fucking city,
yeah. No,
3
it's,
auditions, that's got to be 24 hours worth of your time. It's ridiculous.
yeah, and you drop everything to go to these auditions. It's soul-sucking, and then you get something. It's like, eventually I just said, okay, like going to these auditions is like buying a lottery ticket. You know, went to an audition last week.
Good. I was going to ask if you're still auditioning.
Yeah, and so the cameraman was laughing really hard. And he's like, that was really funny, and didn't get a call back. And then I did another audition where I was like, oh, well, I guess I was pretty funny in that. But I'm just kidding.
That's awesome.
Just kidding. Where I'm just like, why are they calling me back? I was terrible. And then you end up booking that, you know, for whatever reason. Like it can be, like I did one commercial where at the shoot, like the director was like, why isn't he wearing his glasses? And then I realized like, oh, she just cast me because I wore glasses that she liked. So that's the thing. That's why commercial acting is, well, I mean, I guess they're like, oh, where's the guy with the abs? Oh, call Dolph Lundgren, you know.
Right.
It has a superficial element to it. But yeah, so I did that Animal Kingdom last year, and that was shot in Warner Ranch, which is very near Warner Brothers Studio, and it's like where they shot Lethal Weapon. It's like this whole like little community.
The movie, not the TV show.
The movie, yeah.
Okay.
And then last week I shot a commercial there, and
You shot one.
yeah, in that house, and
The house with the toilet blew up on
Yeah,
Marta?
yeah.
Oh, cool.
yeah, and it's always fun to be like, it's just so exciting to be on a studio lot. You've been on a studio lot. It's fun. It's like, it's exciting.
History.
It's history.
You're
And
getting
you
to
think
walk
of-
in history.
Right, and you think of all the movies that have shot there, and like you're in a garage that is painted to look like a cubicle, and you're selling like Verizon, whatever. Still exciting. You still get free food. People are doting over you, putting makeup on you, and you feel important, and you try not to fuck up. But that's for an internet-only commercial, but they're still spending a couple $100,000 on it.
You might not even know, but since the whole landscape of everything is changing, would you get residuals on an internet commercial? And
No.
even how would that even work?
Oh, well, I mean, you can monitor much better than you can with,
I know
with
that,
the airwaves.
But I mean, it's not like you're going to get paid per showing, because it's going to show on my computer, your computer, her computer.
Yeah,
all
well, you can do it
different
per
times.
click, and you know, I don't know this stuff.
Well, I did say you might not know. So.
Yeah. I mean, I could look it up, but
It's probably not worth your time.
It's
It kind
not-
of really doesn't matter, right? It's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
I mean, that check's either going to come or it's not.
right.
So,
And I know I'm getting paid a good amount for the day, and
so the
more
job
than
that you have now, you have this flexibility.
I have flexibility. So I work in technology as a writer, and
a writer,
like a technical
a
writer.
code writer.
I do a little bit of code.
So the thing that you were so terrible at all these
I'm
years
still
ago?
bad at it. I was like doing it today, and I was like, I'm working for like one of the biggest companies in the world, and I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing, and they're expecting me to just like do it. I'm left to my own devices, and I'm just like, let's look at YouTube. And then at the end of the day, I'm just like, okay, gotta get this done. And if anybody has ADD out there, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Are you doing anything about this? Are you on?
Oh yeah, no,
Are you on anything?
I am on. I'm fully drugged up. Go to my psychiatrist and try to do all this stuff, but
I feel like you had a sudden onset ADD, because there's no way that you had this problem when you were in school.
oh no, I completely did.
How did you manage it?
I don't know. I took an English class once where
Just once? You speak really good English.
I'm
sorry.
I watched
you
a
speak
lot.
really well English. I apologize.
I watched a lot of American TV and taught myself that way. Just watched Masterpiece Theater.
Oh.
But in this class, it was a Victorian novel class. And they said, like, oh, we will give you an A if you do all the work, but don't watch TV or movies. And it's like, all right, why not? And
Wait, what does that mean?
because they wanted us to live like we were in Victorian times.
Oh, okay.
So it was me and Mary Beaver, I think. Great name, right? And she's like, I think it was, no. But anyhow, she was just like, I don't watch TV or movies anyhow, so yeah, I'll do that. And then I was like, I need an A! And I thought I could do it, and I did it. I ended up listening to a lot of radio, but never read any of the books, just read the Cliff's Notes and did shitty essays and got an A that way. And, you know, and like with math, I just, like, it was all pretty easy back then. And I have some smarts, but don't have good discipline. So I like to say I graduated with presidential grades from college.
Presidential.
Like, you know, Kennedy was like a C student at Harvard. And
Gotcha. Did George W. Bush go to Yale?
he did, and he had presidential grades.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. How did you get to be on the Nooners? Now, if I remember this correctly, back when Kevin Smith decided he was going to start a network, he wanted a bunch of shows to kind of help fill out the network. He wanted to have a 24-hour...
Podcasting.
Well, he wanted to have a 24-hour radio. Sir, Smodcast Internet Radio. And so he wanted to have a bunch of different content so that there would always be something unique and different running no matter when you logged on.
Right.
And he was doing a daily
By the way,
show.
if you want to listen to Nooner, it's at 4 in the morning, wherever you are, regardless of time zone, 4 a.m.
Is that the truth?
No.
Awesome. And at the time he was doing a daily morning show out of his house. This is a long time ago, so I'm struggling here. But I think that when you and Marty would come in to take over the noon shift...
Me and Dan.
I'm so sorry. I meant you and Dan would come
We get
over.
mixed up a lot. It's
I'm
okay.
sure. But y'all would, I guess, go to Kevin's house
Yeah.
at noon-ish.
No, actually, it started out, we went to the theater at Universal City Walk. So he was podcasting out of the John Lovitz Theater back when they had a relationship.
There's no way. It was during that?
Well, actually, no, you're right. It started at Kevin's house,
At Kevin's
and then
house.
we went to the Lovitz.
So I think Dan came in as a guest and then got all excited about doing it, right?
No, Dan came in and guest on Kevin's show, and he
On
Dan,
Kevin's morning show. His
Yes.
daily, whatever.
and Dan is a raconteur.
Oh, yes, he is.
Incredible storyteller, just a great guy to have at a party. And I told Dan, because I was just starting to understand, listen to podcasts. I was like, you know what? You should have your own podcast. And I said, you should have me on it with you. And so then he pitched it to Kevin. And then Kevin said, I don't know who the fuck the other guy is, but sure, you can have a podcast. And so then
He didn't really say that, but
he thought it.
I'm sure he was just like, sure, man, do whatever.
If Kevin saw me on the street today, he would have no idea who I am.
Oh, cool, me too.
And I've been in his house several times, and
Because he had a room set up in his house.
yeah, but you
like
know,
an
he would
area.
walk in and interact. He would jump on the mic a couple times, but you know, he has no idea who I am. And I knew him before that.
Right,
I
of
met
course.
him.
Oh,
you know.
you had met him before that.
Yeah, so Dan produced this movie called Overnight Delivery with Paul Rudd and Oscar winner Reese Witherspoon. Dan produced that movie, Overnight Delivery, that a friend of ours from college directed, Jason Blum. And
Is that Blumhouse? No.
no, that's Jason Blum.
Gotcha.
Maybe might be pronounced Blum, but I think it was from Miramax. But it ended up being straight to video. Kevin was brought in to rewrite it. And that's where Kevin and Dan became good friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love origin stories, and you know, I've been listening to this so long that I kind of wasn't really clear. I don't even remember how it got started, but I thought I remembered that Dan had come in because back then Kevin, when he was doing that daily thing, he had a few guest stars come in.
Oh yeah.
Like Peggy Bundy and her husband came in, and they were talking about
Katie
this.
Seagal.
Katie Seagal. They were talking about this show that they were about to start doing, or maybe they had already done.
Like
maybe
the
first half
the
of
musical
the season.
thing? Or?
No, it was called Sons of Anarchy.
Oh,
It was
heard of
when
it.
it very first started. He also had Matt Jones in.
Katie Morgan.
He had Katie Morgan. She was going to have her own show, and she might now, but I don't remember. But it was going to be called Sex with Katie. But also he brought in Michael K. Williams. Do you remember him?
Oh, sure. From The Wire.
Oh, man, that guy was awesome. He told some really cool stories.
He's an amazing guy.
So this is a lot of years ago. You've never stopped doing this. You're the only person who's been on every episode.
Michael K. Williams is like kind of off the charts, and like, oh, you're talking about on our. I was like, all those other people went on to bigger
You're
successes.
ridiculous. No. I'm saying that specifically the nooner.
I missed one nooner.
Really?
Yes. So I was on vacation.
And Steve came in.
No.
No?
This was Dan Etheridge and Diane Ruggiero, who's also a producer
Was
on
she pregnant at the
Isn't
time?
She might have been.
So it was Dan and Diane?
Yeah, and I listened to it live while I was running in Hawaii.
Nice.
And it was like a C minus, straight C. It was missing something.
It was okay. I'm sure you haven't kept track because they're not numbered and you don't really care, but how many hours would you say that you have podcasted? Like how many, like after 10,000, you're a pro.
Actually, I thought about this. I think it's going to be either 6 or 7 years come June. It's whatever, like say 45 episodes a year. That's 90 hours a year.
You really think it's only about 45 episodes?
I probably miss like 7.
Average?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that in 2 hours an episode, so what's 90 hours, 90 times 7. I mean, that's...
Oh, we still got another fucking 30 years to go.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
yeah.
That's great.
If you listen to the show, and I encourage you all to listen to the show, you will say that guy needs like at least 9,000 more hours.
You will not say that. You will say, man, this guy needs to pick some people who don't interrupt him all the time.
Here's the thing I would say about the interruption. The interruptions come from comedians, people who are funny, trying to get too funny. Then there's me who has a point, such an important point to make. And nobody really cares about the point. And so we end up trying, and that's why I'm not ever as mad as I sound, except for a few times, but because I know that the people who jump in always have something funny to say.
So I know that it's kind of a revolving open door of MERPs, minor internet radio personalities. And so we've gone through, Dan hasn't really been on in quite some time because, as we discussed, he's off.
In Vancouver, Dancouver. That's where Isenby and Carrie Diaries all shot.
And then for a while we had Bill Watterson.
And he went on to direct a feature film, and his...
Dave Made a Maze. Y'all are all very well familiar with
and
Dave
his
Made a
Star
Maze.
is Rising.
We've had John Puricello.
Who went on to be in several movies and on Twin Peaks.
And he has Barry coming out. And so we've had Steve Kruger and we've had Cassandra Cardenas.
Yes.
Every once in a while, Mickey Broussard. Giselle.
Giselle. And so...
She just fell off the face of the earth, man.
Giselle is
she okay?
one of... Oh, she's great. Like,
Okay.
she is one of my favorite people in the world. And...
and also Jonna Thomasis. She was
Jonna
on
Thomasis,
sometimes?
yes.
Thomasis?
Yes. And, we're away from the podcast, and Jonna Thomasis plays a character called Giselle.
Oh, Giselle Net.
Giselle Net. She's...
Gisela.
Yeah, Gisela. And she is one of my favorite people, both Giselle, which is such a committed, complete character. She has a podcast.
I'm not going to lie. It was probably a year before I knew that Giselle was a character.
Yes. It's one of, like, if you ever get the chance to see either of them perform, because Giselle has her own performances and then Jonna has her own performances. By the way, this sounds like actor-y bullshit, whatever, but no, that's just how she compartmentalizes her performance world. Both of them, she's one of the most incredible performers ever. She's so funny and she's thoughtful. And we love having her on the podcast. So we'd love to have her back again.
It's got to be close to 2 years.
Yeah, it's got to be close to 2 years,
right?
yeah.
But she's okay.
Oh, she's great.
She's just busy.
Yeah, and she's doing a different type of improv right now.
Because I haven't seen her active on Twitter or anything.
No, I think she's very thoughtful, and I think she's just focusing on that. But just being around her was just so inspirational, and Jonna and I were in a writer's group for years and years. I still
Was
get
it
to
called
see-
100 Words?
No, it was called The Hive. And
Oh, that's scary.
yeah, and we made a bunch of short films, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was great.
Kind of like Ladies Lunch Productions, like that kind of a group?
No, it was more, we were all doing our own thing, and
Is that when you were doing Short Round?
no, it was before then, yeah. And we were doing like, actual films. And
By the way, that Grown Up Short Round was fucking hilarious.
oh, thank you.
I thought it was inspired and
It's
really,
on YouTube
really
if you want to
funny.
watch it. You just look up Short Round and my name, and it'll come up, I'm sure. And we have a third one that we never finished cutting. We just thought it was such a slam dunk. And this is the story of Hollywood, or not Hollywood. This is the story of the human condition. We shot these two, and we were so tickled by it. It made us laugh. We thought it was so funny. And we put it on the internet, and Tom Lennon promoted it on a podcast, and other people posted it on their website. Nobody really watched it, and it was such a disappointment that we were just like, oh, the third one, whatever. That is my own ego, and just the whole idea of persistence and being dedicated to your craft. And I was not dedicated to my craft because I was more interested in eyeballs.
Right there with you, because with a legend that wields the kind of sword that Tom Lennon wields, you were probably expecting crazy number, right?
Yeah. To those people out there who are aspired to be creative, and I think that you will never achieve what you dream of in terms of fame and money and whatever, or it's rare. It's very rare. For instance, for me, I'm thrilled that I got to connect with Steve and
Kruger.
Yeah, not you.
Right.
What made you think I meant you?
I'm sorry, I was
That's
it's
crazy.
the Jack Daniels thing.
All right, fair enough. But Steve right in front of me, and several other listeners, and then it's just those individual connections where we have this one listener, Peter WG from Connecticut, and who's just an amazingly nice, interesting guy, and we got to meet him, and those connections are far more important than, making a living is really important.
It is.
Luckily, I don't rely on this to make a living.
Right, that's not what this is about.
Right, and you got to turn this love of podcasting into meeting.
Some of the most amazing. I've had some of the most amazing experiences.
I
I've gotten
have
to meet
retold
crazy
your story countless times of how you've got to meet just incredible people, and because you're bold and fearless, and then you're also dedicated. And so had I dedicated myself to finishing that third episode and
of the Short Round
of the
series.
Short Round series, but then then there's also why am I doing this? There are times when I turn on the mics and I'm like, okay, yeah, there's Steve, yeah, there's Peter WG, yeah, they're the two guys who run the Tumblr page, but why am I doing this again?
Darren Husted and
Tyson Sainer.
Tyson Sainer.
I should be finishing this giant project that I'm supposed to be working on, but I just love it. But it's important to be able to find those things that you love, and then also balance it with the things that you need to do.
I feel a little bit creative, which I've never ever really felt, and I get to meet the most amazing people.
As a fanboy, and I'm a fanboy as well, we have met incredible people.
It's amazing.
Chris and Belle, I'm gonna name drop again. She brought us chocolate chip cookies that she baked. And of course she brought it because Dan was a producer on Veronica Mars, and she acted with, she barely remembered me. I was thrilled to be part of that, It was a thrill. And I also get thrills doing other things. It's important to recognize where those thrills are and then appreciating them. You guys are listening to this now, but before we even recorded, Steve was telling me how he spent this weekend at a random place just talking to somebody and meeting one of the biggest comedy directors in the business right now. Didn't know who he was, and they just had a regular conversation. And from a window washer from San Antonio is a great thing. And you guys had a meaningful conversation.
I thought so, yeah.
And maybe he'll be on this show. Even so, you on a personal level, you got to meet one of your comedy heroes, and
It's fucking amazing.
yeah, I think is a testament to how a little bit of determination gets you somewhere, and being persistent, but without being a dick, and then also just how regular most people are. Like most people, like, you know, even in high positions. So the story I always tell, and I've told this probably 1,000 times on the podcast, but like it's one of my favorite, you know, celebrity sightings. Like I was at a restaurant, I was waiting for a date, and I wedged myself into the bar, and I look at the guy next to me, and he's got a plate of clams, of raw clams, a dozen raw clams. And who gets a dozen raw clams? I happen to love raw clams. Most people get oysters. It was a seafood place, but most people in a seafood place get a dozen oysters. So I go,
I've never even heard of anybody eating raw clam.
Yeah, and I said, that's a hell of an order. And he goes,
Is that what he said? You're just sitting there waiting for your drink or whatever, or you're waiting for your date, and you just look over and you go, no, that's a hell of an order.
And that's literally what I said. And then he's like, oh, do you want one? And he picks one up and hands it to me. And I look, it's Jimmy Kimmel. And I said, no thanks. And I totally got like starstruck because I'm a huge Jimmy Kimmel fan. And then we ended up talking for a good 45 minutes. And he did morning radio in LA.
Your date came and left, and you were just like, sorry, fuck off.
No. Actually, the timing worked out great.
Yes, he used to be Jimmy the Sports Guy on the radio.
Jimmy the Sports Guy.
He was.
Yes, he was also a producer on K-Rock, and he came from Arizona to Palm Springs to LA, and like, but his persona was like I'm Jimmy. I'm calling from my mom's house, and I'm doing the sports, and it was very, very funny.
I think that led to him being on Ben Stein's Money, right?
Yes. Yes, and then The Man Show. So then we were just talking, and then I just completely nerd out, and I just lose myself because I'm like, what the hell? Why not? And I start asking him about the radio show and all the things that happened back behind the scenes. At a certain point, I'm like, oh my God, I sound like an idiot. And he's like, no. Nobody ever asks me about this stuff. And then the date came, and I was like, oh, hey, date, this is Jimmy. It rose my status, you know. Anyhow, it didn't work out with me and the lady, so.
The lady?
Yeah.
Well, I think that I have taken up enough of your time. It's really late, and you were generous enough. Thank you very much for squeezing me in. I am leaving like the butt crack of dawn tomorrow morning.
All right.
So thank you for wedging me in.
Wait, into the butt crack of dawn?
Yeah.
Okay. See how that works? Wedging myself into the butt crack of dawn.
So again, I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, you're doing some great work, and
Thank you.
This is a historical record that generations to come will. They might skip a few episodes, like episode 2.
Nice.
But there's some great stuff.
Well, tell everybody where we can find you.
Okay, well, everybody can find us at...
find you.
Find me. Well, I'm on Twitter at Marty Yu, but I rarely tweet.
I like the way you ran that all together so nobody could understand what you said.
MartyYu. That's at the Twitter. And, I mean, pretty much you can use that. Put that name into every website, and you'll get me.
Also, there's an Instagram, but he almost never uses it.
Almost never uses it. It's probably how you can get to me. If you do Marty Yu at...
Anything.
I think I used to be at Hotmail. I used to be at AOL.
Really?
And I'm at Marty Yu at several things.
Really?
Yeah. And so, you can try.
Just start like a monkey in a typewriter. Just start mashing Marty Yu into everything.
And my password.
And my mother's maiden name.
Yeah.
And where can we find this Nooner podcast that we've been speaking about?
Everybody asks me that, and I think you can go to iTunes, Stitcher, Smodcast.com, Smodco.
Probably.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an amazing thing that you've built here, and I'm privileged to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Marty. Bye. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.